Are we about to see Jey Uso turn heel? Is he going to become a bad guy? Is he going to go on his own and go against everybody else, reject the fans, reject everything, and do it his way? Today, we're going to have some fun because we're going to dissect all of the little details that we have uncovered regarding this potential turn of Jey Uso. My name is Matt. Welcome to Assemble. If you guys end up enjoying this video, help me out and hit the subscribe button. On Raw, the ending segment was going to be the Vision Braun brothers, Braun in the ring, taking out LA Knight. Big Jim comes in to make the save. Big Jim and LA Knight get on the same page. They're cool. And then out of nowhere, Jey Uso spears LA Knight. This is to get the payback for earlier in the night of Raw, where Bronson Reed hit a splash on Jey Uso in the corner after LA Knight moved out of the way. Now, what's interesting with this is that after that whole spear happened, there was an Instagram post from Jey Uso saying, "I'm back." So I thought to myself, what does he mean by he's back? What has changed? What could be changing? And what directions could they go in with Jey Uso? I don't necessarily believe that it would be a full-fledged heel turn, traditional, just woke up tomorrow and he's a bad guy. I think that they like to do more layers to it, to give it more meat, that they transition him a little bit more, that he doesn't have to just turn around and hit Big Jim Uso with a super kick and all of a sudden he's the worst guy in WWE. Because the flip side is how over he is with the audience, how big he is with the live crowd, the merchandise and all of that. It's a tricky thing, but I think that there are some lessons even that they could learn from John Cena and his heel turn. I don't need the final boss showing up. I'll tell you right now. I don't need to, if they're like, we need to figure this out. How do we make Jey Uso a bad guy? Don't turn to The Rock. It just doesn't work. Where did all this come from? Why is it now that Jey Uso's character is seemingly not on board with how things are going? That he's kind of going in for himself? I think it really all did start back when he lost the World Heavyweight Championship. He lost the championship clean to Gunther on Raw. He passed out from the choke, and at the time, the big speculation from all of us was going to be that there was going to be a big cash in from Seth Rollins, and that didn't happen. They had Jey lose clean. He held the belt for 51 days. And so week after week, you were starting to get more players all involved with the World Heavyweight Championship, with Seth Rollins, and things were starting to evolve. Gunther was dealing with multiple people, but then it was Goldberg, and then it was CM Punk. The vision was starting to grow a little bit more and more. You had the likes of Sami Zayn, LA Knight, Jey Uso, CM Punk, all having to deal with the vision. And of course, we were getting just the multiple beatdowns per night on Raw, just a post-match beatdown brawl. And so at SummerSlam, we got Jey Uso teaming up with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns making his return after the beatdown from Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins the night after WrestleMania, where Braun Breaker sided with Seth Rollins. So Roman comes back, they do the tag team match against the Braun brothers and the Tsunami Man and the Dog Barker. They eat the pin, and Jey Uso and Roman Reigns, they are victorious. But also notable at SummerSlam, the cash-in. Gunther and CM Punk had the World Heavyweight Championship match. Punk wins the belt. Then Seth Rollins' music hits, and it's all over for CM Punk. And during this time period, right, we have the likes of LA Knight dealing with Seth Rollins, the fake injury that took place. LA Knight moving over to Monday Night Raw, trying to get his hands on Seth Rollins, the Vision, dealing with this week after week after week, wanting to get the World Heavyweight Championship as well. And one thing I do really like lately is how much emphasis they're putting on the world title, having multiple people wanting to go after the world title. It's been great in that aspect. But over time, Jey's been getting advice, and you've been seeing a little bit more and a little bit more of Jey Uso backstage, how he wants to get his championship back. Since losing it to Gunther, he has not reclaimed it. It's constantly been just deviated and going in different directions. One interesting moment was when he had the backstage segment with Roman Reigns, and Roman essentially is telling Jey that he's done everything for his family, he's done everything for the bloodline, he needs to do things for himself. And Jey's interaction with Roman, he was talking to Roman about how he wants that world title back. Roman's influence on Jey has always been one of the best, most fascinating components of the Bloodline saga that we got. As the Bloodline story was beginning and evolving, you always had Jey Uso number 2 under the thumb of Roman Reigns. Jey being kind of forced and bullied into being part of the bloodline with Roman Reigns, going along with everything that Roman wanted, making decisions that he didn't feel comfortable in doing, all for the family and for the tribal chief. And Roman always kind of protecting Jey, building him up as well, trying to coddle him, making him that number 2 in the bloodline. So I've always been very interested, and I've always really liked that part of the bloodline storyline, how Jey would cower in the ring. Like, you would see it on him that he would cower into the corner when Roman Reigns was doing something or telling him to do something or hit him with a chair. And so as time has gone by, and where we are today, as Jey Uso is on his own, Mr. Yeet Man, and he's one of the biggest stars in WWE, they're able to blur the lines a little bit, which is always the fun part. And now you have a position where Jey's very popular, but he's not getting to the heights that he once was. And even more interesting was when you watch WWE Unreal. And when you watch that, and that is, you know, take it with a grain of salt, because they show you what they want to show you. But part of the backstage stuff that they were showing off anyways was the writer's room, Triple H and his team talking about Jey and the Royal Rumble win, and leading to the Royal Rumble and Jey being the one to do that, not John Cena, not CM Punk, and going with Jey as the guy, because they could see his popularity, and they were wondering if he can handle it. Triple H made comments in that show about how, like, you know, Jey's just blown up doing his entrance. He doesn't know if he can be the big main eventer. And so I've always kind of kept that in mind too, of how Jey's character has evolved. That the company's putting a lot behind him to be the guy. And we got his win at WrestleMania in a big moment, but he drops it within a couple of months. So if Jey is going to turn heel, you can see where his motivation is, and it's very clear. He wants the world title, and he can look to Roman Reigns, who is the longest champion they've had in the modern era, all the accolades of the bloodline, being part of the bloodline, where he is now, and the relationship he does have with Roman today. He can almost look at it as a playbook of what he needs to do to accomplish all of his goals. Because this is what Roman did. Roman stopped doing whatever anybody was wanting him to do in terms of like the office of WWE, and they parlayed that into the tribal chief character. Roman started to do everything for himself. He got the wise man, he started the bloodline, he became champion, and he just dominated, and he was doing everything the way he wanted it to be done. So I think Roman's influence in all of this can be a very interesting story piece, and it could lead to some potential matches down the road, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But another interesting piece is the segment that we had backstage of Jey and Jimmy. Jey getting all frustrated because of everything going on with LA Knight and the Vision and everything, and Jey just basically getting screwed over constantly. And Jimmy's reaction to Jey saying that he's starting to sound a lot like Roman, and Jey saying that maybe sounding like myself isn't working anymore. This in the moment didn't really click, but now it's starting to kind of all piece together, and I really do like that. I like when WWE does stuff where they drop Easter eggs, or they do these little moments, you know, a segment here and a segment here week after week, and then when you can pull it all together, you can see the whole path of where they might be going. And then it all makes sense. Not always. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just awful. But sometimes it works. So Jey, in the last couple of weeks, he has been adopting that much more colder mindset, doing it himself, going into Clash in Paris, the fatal 4-way match. He's been dealing with Punk and LA Knight and having to align with them, and the three of them just getting in each other's faces, not getting on the same page. And even at that moment in Clash in Paris, you saw Jey turn around and super kick CM Punk, with Jey left standing tall. And then after Clash in Paris, you have LA Knight and Jey Uso in the ring, going at it on the microphone. LA Knight saying that it was all Jey's fault, why LA couldn't get the title when he had a clear opportunity and clear chances to do it. Jey Uso's the one who made mistakes. And I like that too, because Jey was doing it for himself. He was doing things to screw over LA Knight, but in the end, it all resulted with Seth Rollins retaining the title, ultimately because Becky Lynch came in and low blowed CM Punk. But during the course of the match, if Jey Uso stayed out of the way and more or less helped everybody else, somebody else would have gotten the world title. But that's not what Jey wants. Jey wants to be able to get the world title for himself, get it back, because that's what he constantly talks about. And if you look at the past week on Raw, you have Jimmy and Jey aligned again, the Usos back in a tag team match going into WrestlePalooza against the Braun brothers. But I like all the tension that they present backstage, where Jimmy is trying to keep the peace with himself, LA Knight, and Jey. Jey is just not having it anymore. Jey rejecting all of it and the idea of helping out LA Knight. I like that backstage moment where Jey is leaving the arena. They had the opening segment with the Usos in the ring. They challenged Braun and Bronson, not to a dog barking match, but to a wrestling match at WrestlePalooza. That gets figured out, and backstage, you have Jey leaving. And Jey leaving the way he did, and Jimmy's confused of like, well, wait a minute, they beat down LA Knight, like we gotta go help him in the main event. He's going up against Bronson Reed. And Jey's just like, it's not my problem. I'm gonna get out of here. It adds another layer to it. It supports the idea of Jey wanting to do things for himself, like Roman Reigns would do. It doesn't concern him. so he's not going to get involved in it. And Jimmy having to bring him back. Kind of like how Sami Zayn was also kind of the glue with the bloodline, keeping it together between multiple sides, and even Jey during the bloodline, having to keep the peace between everybody. Now Jimmy is starting that role where there's multiple people and having to keep the peace amongst all the players. So I like that Jey is just ready to go and he's not even thinking about LA Knight. Why should he? Because this is different than what you would see from Jey in the past, where he would constantly, and still lately, come out in the main event, help out CM Punk, help out Sami Zayn, help out LA Knight, but he was always getting screwed at the very end. So what's interesting is in the main event, when you do have the spear from Jey to LA Knight, it's calculated, it's deliberate. There's no question mark. When Bronson Reed is splashing Jey in the corner and LA Knight got out of the way, sure, that's just the cost of doing business, and stuff just kind of happens. And LA Knight apologizes. Jey's moment was deliberate, standing over top of LA Knight who's on the ground, posting on social media that he's back. All these things are adding layers to it. Everybody online talking about, oh, this was Jey Uso turning heel. I don't think he's just turned heel all of a sudden. But what can be interesting is what they do with Jey Uso coming up at WrestlePalooza. Do you think that they would go and have Jey turn heel there? If they lose the match, does he turn around and super kick or spear Jimmy? We've had Battle of the Brothers at WrestleMania, and that was a not so great match if you ask me. But there's a lot of implications, I think, at WrestlePalooza if Jey turns his back on Jimmy, they lose, because you kind of think that, oh, the Usos are reuniting, so at WrestlePalooza, let's give the Usos a big win. If Jey loses, I think it's more interesting, and the fallout of it, because then you are coming up to War Games. Sure, we have Crown Jewel in the middle there, and they could tell some stories over the coming weeks with the Vision, with Jey, Jimmy, and LA Knight. And if Jey's going more on a dark path throughout all of this, War Games is extremely interesting then in my eyes, because you could have some very interesting teams. On one side, the Vision. And my little prediction here is that you would have a mixed gender War Games, where you would have the Vision including Becky Lynch, and that's your 4-person team. Maybe they add a 5th member in the meantime, you never know. Going up against Team Punk. Punk, AJ Lee, LA Knight, Jey Uso. You could bring in Roman Reigns. Again, the Vision needs to have a 5th member. Maybe it's Gunther, he comes back. Or Jey teams with the Vision at War Games. Roman Reigns has enough heat with Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and he still needs to get revenge on those guys. He got written off after Clash. War Games is a huge show, and I think that is your big War Games match. But how the teams shake out could be neat. Jey, in the meantime, between now and War Games, can turn his back on Jimmy, even on Roman, everybody, and side with Vision, not join them. Because a lot of people are talking about how Jey could join Vision. He's been fighting them so much. It's wrestling. They could write it and just make it work and just be like, fine, he sides with them. Look at Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed fought Seth Rollins. He put him through a car. They're brawling backstage constantly. And then Bronson Reed ends up siding with him. Jey, he could do that too. He could just be the new member of the group, but he's wanting to do everything his way, on his own, to get the world title. So I don't know if him joining really would work, but he could be kind of an honorary member. Look at War Games in the past. They brought in Bronson Reed for that War Games match, and then that was it. They've had Drew McIntyre on the War Games team with Judgment Day. People who just have problems and feuds going on with the other team. Jey could just be so sick of Jimmy, of Punk, of LA Knight that he's going on Seth's side to go after them. So the stakes get bigger and bigger when it comes to Jey. Now, what do you do after that? You are left with, if Jey continues to go down a dark path, he can do things like John Cena does, and I mentioned him at the beginning. John Cena turned his back on the fans in his heel run. He was gonna ruin wrestling, all of these different things. As much as I didn't love John Cena's heel run, things that they could learn from Cena's heel turn is Jey Uso not giving the fans what they want. He can stop yeeting with the crowd, come out through the front, blame the fans. It's pretty easy he could become a giant heel. Then you end up with really interesting matchups. You can finally have a clean-cut LA Knight Jey Uso one-on-one match, but now Jey Uso's the bad guy. Punk and Jey can go one-on-one. And ultimately, you could end up with a big match at Royal Rumble, even WrestleMania, Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. Roman coming back to defend the family and trying to bring Jey back to the good side, but Jey wanting to just do everything on his own. And maybe even after Mania, you could see Jey get the World Heavyweight title once again. I mean, there's a lot of directions you can go, I think, if Jey does become more of a bad guy. I don't know if WWE will pull the trigger though. If they do, I think they have way more to work with. And it doesn't even have to be about Jey wanting to become tribal chief. It's a whole different thing. He can carve out his own path and his own new direction as a bad guy. But what do you think? Does Jey turn heel? Are we seeing it happen right now as it's unfolding? If you want to talk more WWE and deep dive topics, click this video right here and have a great day. See ya.